welcome to the deep dive. You've given us some really fascinating material this time. We're looking at excerpts from Medieval Combat, a 15th century illustrated manual of sword fighting and close quarter combat.
Right.
And the first thing that really jumps out is right there in the subtitle. It's illustrated.
Yeah, that's huge. Think about learning something so physical, like fighting, just from pictures back then.
Exactly. It sort of gives you this immediate window into how they actually passed on practical knowledge in the 15th century, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, before literacy was super common, visuals were, well, essential. Especially for something complex like combat.
Where movement, timing, it's everything.
Exactly. So the fact that it is illustrated, that's a key insight right from the get-go.
Absolutely. And our aim here, with this deep dive is to really pull out the core ideas from this manual. We want to give everyone listening a feel for the practical realities of medieval martial arts as they saw them back in the 15th century.
And we'll focus on what really stood out to us, maybe things that were a bit surprising.
Yeah, what we found particularly interesting.
And it's worth saying this manual covers a lot of ground.
It really does.
The title mentions sword fighting, close quarter stuff, but when you look at the contents, wow.
Yeah, it's broad, different weapons, even unarmed fighting.
It suggests personal combat back then wasn't just about, mastering one thing. It was a whole system.
Right, a 15th century view on handling yourself in a fight, weapon or no weapon. Okay, so let's dig in, starting with those visuals.
Okay.
This being an illustrated manual, a 15th century illustrated manual, what does that really tell us about how combat skills were, well, taught and learned?
Well, like we touched on, the visual part would have been absolutely crucial. Imagine trying to understand a complex sword move just from words.
Oh, impossible. Or you'd get it completely wrong.
Right. So many misunderstandings possible. Pictures, though, they give you this immediate, almost gut-level understanding. Body position, flow, how the fighters interact.
It's like seeing it broken down frame by frame.
Yeah, showing, not just telling. You can almost see the sequence.
And thinking about who used this. Maybe guys learning on their own, maybe instructors.
Could be both. Yeah. Either way, those pictures are invaluable. It suggests they really valued that practical, hands-on skill.
Knowledge in the body, kind of.
Exactly. Combat is physical. Theory helps, sure, but seeing it and then trying it, that's the direct route. The pictures bridge that gap.
Makes total sense. Okay, now, the structure. The table of contents is, well, it's impressive.
It really is.
We've got whole sections, longsword, armored combat in the lists with spear and sword, poleaxe, shield and wooden mace, shield and sword, shield alone, dagger, wrestling, mess or maybe a short knife, sword and buckler.
He's going.
1 against 2, fight between a man and a woman, fight on horseback, hard hand like fist fighting, and horseback with lance and sword.
Phew. That's a serious curriculum, isn't it?
It really is.
What strikes me is the mix. You have specialization sections for specific weapons, right? That implies focused study. Yeah. But then you also get unarmed stuff, fighting multiple guys. It points to a really comprehensive approach. Self-defense in a broad sense.
And that specific mention of armored combat in the lists, that feels significant.
It is telling, yeah. It suggests they distinguish between, let's say, formal duels or tournament fighting.
Right, maybe more sporting.
Perhaps. Versus, just defending yourself out in the world. Different contexts.
Okay, let's dive into some specifics. Since it's so visual, we'll try and paint a picture. Starting with the longsword, plates 1 to 67, plate 22. It shows one guy in a weak crosswise guard, the other in a strong right hanging guard. Just from that setup, what can we sort of figure out?
Well, you immediately see an imbalance, right? Yeah. The strong hanging guard sounds more secure defensively and probably a good position to launch a strong downward cut from. It likely puts pressure on the other guy, the one in the weak guard.
So he has to react or disrupt that advantage.
Exactly. It highlights a core idea, control the fight from strength.
Makes sense. Then plate 54. A guy attacks from the break using the short edge, thrusting to the chest. Sounds nasty.
It is. The breche, that opening in the defense, it's critical. Attacking from there shows you need to exploit those quick moments.
And using the short edge for a thrust.
Yeah, more focused, piercing, shows the brutal efficiency needed sometimes. Chest target, very direct.
And plate 63, one guy intends to strike, the other guy wants to disengage, then charge. That's dynamic.
Oh yeah, you can almost feel the tension in that image.
Like a pause before chaos.
Exactly. You see the planned attack, but the opponent is trying to mess with the timing, create distance, then rush in. It says a lot about anticipation, timing, that constant back and forth.
Okay, moving to armored combat in the lists. Plates 68 to 73, you mentioned the formal setting. What stands out in these pictures?
Well, first off, you see attendants, specific gear. Plate 68 shows a fighter entering the lists, his attendant carrying his banner, his equipment.
Right.
Plate 69, they're both seated, waiting. Each has an attendant, and, well, there's a coffin nearby for each.
Yeah. Wow. A coffin. That really hits home how serious this was.
No kidding. Even in this formal setting, the stakes were ultimate.
Then the fight starts. Spears first, then swords. Plate 70, they're prepping to throw spears. Plate 71, spears thrown, swords are coming out.
Yeah, that spear toss was a common opener in these duels. Engage at a distance first.
Before getting close with swords.
Right. And then plate 72 and 73 show the murder stroke.
The what now?
The murder stroke. It sounds brutal, and it was. Gripping your own blade.
Gripping the blade.
Yeah, to use the heavy pommel or the crossguard like a hammer, bashing vulnerable spots in the armor.
Ah, okay. Because the edge wouldn't cut the plate.
Exactly. Heavy armor often meant you needed blunt force trauma, concussive hits. The murder stroke delivered that.
Definitely gets the point across. Okay, let's shift to the poleaxe. Plates 74-79, but our notes highlight 80-81 and 84-85. Right. What techniques pop out here?
The poleaxe was incredibly versatile. Plate 80, for instance, shows one guy breaking free from a weapon bind, and then, bam, strikes his opponent right in the eye with the butt end of the poleaxe, takes him out instantly.
Ouch, yeah. Exploiting that opening decisively.
Definitely. Plate 81, different scenario. One guy ready to strike down with the axe head, the other trying to control that incoming weapon with his own poleaxe.
While planning his own counter, probably.
Looks like it. That constant struggle for control. And then plates 84 and 85 really show the grappling side.
Grappling with a poleaxe.
Yeah. Using the weapon itself in close binds for leverage, for throws, holds, even using the shaft to trap the opponent's neck.
Wow. So it wasn't just for striking at reach?
Not at all. Very multifaceted. Plates 92 and 93 also caught my eye. 92 shows a thrust, deflecting the opponent's thrust, then bending their neck.
That sounds controlled and vicious.
It is. High-level weapon control. Not just hitting, but manipulating, setting up the next move. And plate 93 shows a counter using grappling.
So even with polearms, closing the distance and wrestling was still a key option.
Absolutely. Never forget the grappling.
Okay, shield and wooden mace. Plates 104 to 126. Seems like a classic combo. Defense and, well, bashing?
Pretty much. Shield protects you getting in close. Mace delivers that concussive force, good against armor. Plates 104, 105 show the starting guards. Shields up, mace is ready.
Setting the scene.
Then 106, 107 show the mace going for the head, while the shield is busy parrying, blocking, creating that opening.
And it's not just passive blocking, right? Plates 122 to 125. Looks like they use the shield offensively.
That's a key point. Plate 122 shows using the shield to pivot the opponent off balance.
Aha.
Leading to a throw in 123 and 124, then finishing with the mace on the ground at 125.
Ah.
The shield is dynamic. It disrupts, controls, creates chances.
Not just hiding behind it. Got it.
Yeah.
So shield and sword, plates 128 to 150, another fundamental pairing. How does this work?
A similar idea, shield for defense, but the sword offers more versatility, right? Cutting and thrusting. Plates 128, 130 show stances, initial moves. What's interesting is how the shield can be used to, like, obscure vision, disorient the opponent.
You create openings for the sword.
Exactly. Plate 143 describes using the shield to hide the sword hand.
Sneaky.
Yeah, allowing a surprise thrust when the opponent is exposed. It's about controlling information.
Masking your intent. Clever. And plate 144.
That shows a direct cut to the opponent's hand. Probably trying to disarm them or just make them drop the weapon. Practical.
Now, just the shield alone. Plates 151, 164, and 167, 169. That's intriguing. How is a shield a weapon by itself?
Well, primary function's defense, sure. But the manual shows offensive uses. Plates 151, 153 show grappling, throws, using the shield as a lever.
Okay.
And remember, some shields had spikes or reinforced edges. You could definitely strike with those.
Plate 163 specifically shows using the shield to attack the groin.
Yep. Direct and effective target.
And plate 169 has this interesting note. The shield fight is at an end. God deliver us from all worry.
Huh. Yeah, that suggests maybe shield-only fights were tough, maybe drawn out, and finishing one was a huge relief.
Okay, on to the dagger. Plates 170, 189. This has got to be super close quarters stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Weapon of last resort, or maybe primary in tight spaces. Plate 170 shows lots of scenarios, different grips, attack angles. Plates 173 and 174 show counters to stabs, trapping the arm, disarming, throwing.
Plate 183 has someone using the dagger to ward off, gain leverage around the arms. Seems like control is key again.
It really is.
Yeah.
At that range, the dagger is as much about controlling limbs, creating tiny openings, manipulating the opponent as it is about just stabbing.
Then there's a big section on wrestling. Plates 190 to 221 really shows how important unarmed combat was.
No doubt. Lots of illustrations. Holds, throws, counters. Plate 190 shows a counter to a chest thrust that includes a follow-up stab. Clever integration.
And Plate 196, a throw after going between the opponent's legs.
Yeah, it highlights that seamless connection they saw between armed and unarmed skills.
Being able to transition smoothly seems vital.
Absolutely. Grappling could create an opening for your weapon, or it was the way to end the fight if you were unarmed.
We should also quickly mention the messer, plates 222, 230. Possibly a short knife.
Right, another weapon type covered. Single-edged sword, its own techniques.
And sword and buckler, plates 231, 239.
Yeah, another common combo. Shows the breadth of knowledge they thought was important.
Then we get into some specialized scenarios. 1 against 2, plates 240, 241. That sounds terrifying.
Probably shows tactics for that. Maybe using distance, environment, trying to isolate them one by one.
Yeah.
Not engaging both at once if you can help it.
And maybe surprisingly, a fight between a man and a woman. Plates 242, 249. Why include that, do you think?
Well, it likely reflects that such things, however maybe frowned upon or uncommon, could happen.
Realities of the time.
Yeah. The techniques might consider differences in strength, maybe typical fighting styles they perceived. It's a glimpse into less conventional self-defense thinking.
Then mounted combat. Fight on horseback, plates 251, 264. And fight on horseback with lance and sword 267, 270 clearly shows how important cavalry was.
Oh, absolutely. Fighting from horseback is a whole different game. Horsemanship, using weapons on a moving platform, reach, stability.
All different challenges.
And the specific lance and sword techniques show how key they were on the battlefield and in tournaments.
And finally, hard hand or fist fighting, plates 265, 266. So right down to bare knuckles.
It really covers the whole spectrum, doesn't it? A complete guide for personal combat.
So looking back at everything, what are the big takeaways, the general observations about medieval combat from this manual?
Well, first, the techniques seem overwhelmingly practical, very direct.
Yeah, not flashy.
Not really.
Yeah.
It looks like the focus is purely on effectiveness, getting the job done.
So priorities were a defense, offense, grappling?
All of the above. Strong defense, exploiting openings, grappling was huge across different weapons, and being adaptable.
Adapting to armor, no armor, on foot, on horse.
Exactly. And including unarmed stuff shows that holistic approach. It wasn't just about the sword.
And did you notice any recurring themes? We talked about control.
Yes, that's a huge one.
Yeah.
Controlling the opponent's weapon, their body, their balance, you see it everywhere.
Binding weapons, manipulating limbs, using the shield to unbalance.
All about establishing your dominance in the fight. Control is key for both offense and defense.
And that distinction between fighting in the lists versus general self-defense also keeps popping up.
Right. Context mattered. Formal rules versus unpredictable reality.
So to kind of wrap it up for everyone listening, this illustrated manual is just an incredible window into 15th century martial arts.
Very direct.
It shows this really pragmatic, comprehensive approach. Longsword, wrestling, fighting multiple guys, even man versus woman. It's all in there.
And what's really striking is how integrated it all feels. It wasn't just about one weapon. It was about a whole system.
Armed, unarmed, adapting.
Exactly. Adapting to the situation, the opponent. And the pictures make those core ideas surprisingly clear, even centuries later.
It really does. It makes you wonder, looking at these techniques, what's most different from how maybe we imagined medieval combat?
Yeah, good question. Is it the emphasis on grappling, even with swords, or just how direct and unfancy it all seems?
Definitely gives you a lot to think about.
It does. And it raises that other question, you know, how do these basic principles, control, leverage, timing, show up in other martial arts, historical or even modern?
That's a fascinating thought to leave things on. Okay, that brings us to the end of this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
We look forward to our next exploration together.